Hey there, Otaku! Are you into retro gaming? Are you into modern gaming? Are you into video gaming? Go Mega Otaku Gamer Alpha has new episodes most Sundays right here on this channel. Check them out. Hey there, Otaku! Welcome back to another episode of Go Mega Otaku Gamer Alpha. I'm your Mega Otaku Gamer, Ken Chan here, and today we're looking at the Intellivision game console. Mark 1, Mark 2. Yeah, baby! Okay, the Mattel Intellivision. Mattel had made handheld gaming devices. I showed you a couple of those in a previous episode. Okay, and so they wanted to get into the home console market. Atari was there, and it was at a time where other people were starting to get into this. They were starting to research and develop devices. So Mattel in 1979 test marketed their Mattel Intellivision in the US, and in 1980 they released it in North America. In 1982 they released it in Europe and Japan. It was discontinued in 1983. They sold 3 million units. It used ROM cartridges. The CPU was a GICP 1610. And they actually had an online service for it, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. It wasn't really online the way we understand it today. It was more along the lines of what Sega had with their Sega Channel. It was something that plugged into the Intellivision unit. You download a game, but as soon as you turn the system off, the game's gone, type thing. Best-selling game was a Major League Baseball. They sold 1 million units. Development of this console began actually in 1978. Less than a year after the introduction of its main competitor, the Atari 2600. The word Intellivision, what they did was they took intelligent television and they put it together to Intellivision. Okay. 125 games were released for the console. Now, the programmers, the interesting thing was there was a lot of hype today and a lot of kind of like nostalgic feel for the programmers who worked for Mattel on the Intellivision games. They were referred to as the Blue Sky Rangers. Okay, and more information about that can be found on the internet. And they sold 175,000 units in their first year. By 1982, sales were soaring. 2 million Intellivision consoles had been sold by the end of the year. The original 5-person Mattel game development team grew to 110 people. They had some interesting peripherals. They had a keyboard component. They had the IntelliVoice. And then in 1982, they redesigned the Intellivision, and they called it the Intellivision 2. And the Intellivision 2 was basically the same thing as the Intellivision, just a redesigned box. But it had some kind of lockout feature on it. Certain games that played on the Intellivision wouldn't play on the Intellivision 2. To my understanding, one of these games was Donkey Kong. You couldn't play it on the Intellivision 2 for whatever reason, probably some kind of licensing thing between Nintendo and Intellivision where they just decided you know, one party or the other decided that we're not going to support the other party for this. And of course it hung on till the major crash in 1983. Let's have a look at these consoles. Okay, this is the Intellivision Mark 1. Okay, it has the faux wood grain thing going on there. 2 controllers built in, and these, as you can see, are hardwired. That's attached to the unit there. That does not come out. This is a reset button here. This is on-off switch here. Cartridges go in the side there. Okay. And that's the Mark 1. The Mark 2, I have one of the controllers unplugged to show you that it is indeed a device that has detachable controllers. Right here you go. We're going to go ahead and plug that right on in there. It's a little bit squirrely to get that in there, but it goes in. And it's a redesign. It kind of reminds you of an NES type thing in the sense that it's like a simple box, much smaller, more compact. On-off switch here. You push it down to turn it on. You can just tap it to reset it, or you can hold it down and let go, and that turns it off. They kept this same design that they had on the Intellivision one with the disc and the phone pad, and you know, you had your overlays that went over top of this, of course, to bring meaning to these buttons. Same thing for this, same design, but these were recessed. These buttons here are recessed, whereas these puff up. These are puffy buttons. And of course they kept the disc design for this. This has buttons on the side here, as does this. Same kind of design. It has buttons here, turn it over, more buttons, turn this over, more buttons here, more buttons here. So there was plenty of control. Despite what a lot of people might say about this, there are, you know, basically 2 trains of thought to this, and that is, number one, that this kind of control was innovative and kind of the precursor to the rocker switch that we have today. And the other train of thought is that this controller just sucks. And I go with more or less the second train of thought for this controller. I really don't like it. I really think it's a bad design. But by the same token, I kind of agree that it is more or less the precursor, the granddaddy of the rocker switch type thing. They had the right idea, but bad design. I think what they were thinking is they want you to be able to have the freedom to like just slide your thumb around to make things happen. Whatever. So that's that. The games were these 4K cartridges. Okay, Beauty and the Beast. As opposed to Atari's 2K cartridges. The graphics in hindsight, despite the fact that at the time it sounded like they made it sound like the graphics were so much better. If you really look now at an Intellivision, or you know, an Intellivision and then an Atari, you look at screenshots for both of those, you look at those and you go, what's the point? You know, there really isn't that big of a difference between the two. And it was all about how much memory they could stick on a cartridge, and Atari got to the point where they were sticking more than 2K on a cartridge, and yeah, and then Intellivision got to the point where they were sticking more than 4K on this. So it really didn't matter. This device didn't do nearly as well as the Atari did. None of the competing devices that came out during the second generation there really competed with Atari that well. So anyhow, there's that. And of course, as I mentioned before, they had the online service, which was something that basically you plug a device into the cartridge port here, and you could get games served over the phone into the device, and you could play it basically until, you know, you turn the machine off, and then the game is gone. But they were the first to really offer some kind of, rudimentary as it was, online type, gaming experience. Now, of course, you couldn't play against anyone else, to my knowledge, but it allowed you to get content to the box for, at the time, I guess, a reasonable price. Now, this system can be considered a 16-bit system, although I really wouldn't look at it like that. It had a 16-bit CPU. However, it still had these little 4K cartridges, these 4K games, so it was 16-bit on paper for the most part. It could do 16-bit numbers, I guess, but I wouldn't, pit it up against something 16-bit, like when they made a big deal out of it with like the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis was really the first really effective 16-bit machine versus just plain old having a 16-bit CPU and not really knowing what to do with it. Let's look at some of the games. Okay, we're going to look at Donkey Kong, and I'm playing this on the Intellivision 1. One player, level 1, and that's your music. And Mario looks like a little chump here. Wow. A little bit on the pain in the butt side to control this. Not easy to control. I saved that blob at the top of the thing. Oh, here we go. This looks great. Ooh. See, you see what I mean, though? This is 4K. See, I jumped to get that hammer and I totally missed it. Okay, and that was Donkey Kong. You can't have Intellivision without Astro Smash. It's like Space Invaders meets Asteroids or something like that. There are lots of discs out there, games on discs like Intellivision's greatest hits type discs that they've had for a long time now, since PlayStation 1 days, where you can revisit these games. They put a bunch of them on a disc, not as many as they could. The fact of the matter is they could very easily put all 125 games that they made for this system on a disc. But they don't do that for whatever reason. Maybe it's because, the disc has to run an emulator also. But I still don't see how, even on a CD-ROM, that could take up that much space for something that was based on a 4K architecture. But anyway, this game is meant to just play and play and play forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And it's not that hard, really. Where it does get hard, though, is on your hand. Controlling the thing is a real pain. Astro Smash. Okay, what we have here is Atlantis by Imagic. This is a third-party game here. Let's have a look at this. And it kind of looks like Missile Command type thing. Ooh. Hard game. More TIE fighters. Why does everything look like TIE fighters? Guess it's turning into nighttime here. Oh, that was a tough shot to make, too. Ooh, look at that. Who's your daddy? Come some more TIE fighters. TIE fighters invading Atlantis. Now we're at nighttime and you can only see them where the yellow is. Ooh, and that is the end of Atlantis. Okay, we're going to look at Space Armada, which kind of looks like Space Invaders. Ooh, yeah. Good thing they give you all these extra guys. Heh. Oh, I missed the UF. Heh. Space Armada. And of course, you can't talk about the Mattel Intellivision without Star Strike. I believe this was one of the ones that used the IntelliVoice. Oh. And of course, every time you screw up in this game, they show this scene where the Earth gets blown up. You get the idea. Kind of has that running the gauntlet in the Death Star type feel. Wow, that was a loud Earth blowing up. A very little bit of Star Strike there for you. 3, 2, 1. All in all, the Intellivision had made a serious impact. It's remembered today, even today, and as I said, compilation discs and cards. They made a game for the DS not that long ago that had Intellivision games all over, and I have one of those. There's like 20 Intellivision games or something like that. I think it's called Intellivision Lives or something. And if you look around there are other compilation discs like that for other systems. You can get them for just about any system. And they had made their impact. While the console itself wasn't a big seller, it was a cult machine. It was a cult classic. There were certain people that just were die-hard Intellivision fans. Those people are still around today. There are Intellivision, if you look around online, there are Intellivision fan clubs. There's, you know, the Blue Sky Rangers fan club, things like that. Worth looking into if you're an Intellivision fan. The Intellivision, of course, is a must-have if you're a collector. I really seriously recommend it to anyone who collects video game systems. It's a staple from that generation. It's one of those, you have to have it. Whether you have the first or the second version, probably the first version, you know, the Mark I is the one that everybody remembers the best. That would be the one that I would recommend. For the more hardcore collector, maybe you want both. But it had made its mark. It has made its mark. It's remembered even today. Still a lot of Intellivision fans out there. I recommend it. So to recap and sum it all up in one sentence, it's the Intellivision by Mattel. I didn't know.